Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. As you're aware, we are here to make an announcement regarding a lengthy investigation into organized crime and police corruption. First, let me say, while the information you're about to hear is troubling, please rest assured this investigation is ongoing. And we will not rest until we are sure corrupt criminal actors and anyone abusing their power as a police officer is held accountable. While this is a deeply disappointing and sad day for policing, this investigation also underscores the insidious, corrosive nature of organized crime. It highlights how these criminals find a way to infiltrate even the most well-protected institutions across our society. The impacts of organized crime in our community on our safety and well-being cannot be understated. In this case, as you will hear shortly from Deputy Chief Ryan Hogan, investigators allege that Toronto police officers had unlawfully accessed personal information. This information was then funneled to other criminals who carried out shootings and other violent offenses. The investigation also uncovered evidence of other illicit activity which will be outlined by Deputy Chief Hogan. This news is both shocking and completely unacceptable. Corruption has no place in policing. It's never and will never be tolerated. Now, to the people watching this at home, I know you may feel shaken, confused, or angry about this news. Understand that we are resolute in our commitment to identifying, apprehending, and prosecuting everyone responsible for these reprehensible crimes. Every time we put on this uniform, we renew our commitment to each and every one of you, not just to keep you safe, but to stand up for what's right, to exercise our authority and our power responsibly, and to respect the trust you instill in us. And while we work collectively to right these wrongs, please know we are committed to transparency, because it's the only way to rebuild trust. Now, it's also important to note this investigation and the subsequent arrests are thanks to the dedication and commitment of hundreds of police officers. To those officers who were called to investigate their own and who have been working around the clock for many months, thank you very much. Your professionalism and commitment to public safety has, without a doubt, made this province safer. This includes members of the Toronto Police Service whose participation was integral to this investigation. Thank you to those officers, and to Chief Demkew for your cooperation, collaboration, and partnership in what has been a challenging investigation. When I first notified Chief Demkew of this investigation, we made a collective commitment to leave no stone unturned. That's the mandate I've given to our investigative team. We owe it to the members of the police services we respectively lead, and to the over 30,000 other police personnel across this province who conduct themselves with integrity and true to our oath as they work to keep our community safe and secure. But most importantly, we owe it to you, our community members, and we intend to deliver. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to the deputy shortly.
I'd now like to call to the podium York Regional Police Deputy Chief Ryan Hogan.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. On behalf of Chief McSween, Chief Demkew, and the investigative teams who led Project South, I will be providing you with an overview of a lengthy and complex investigation that began in June of 2025. Over 7 months, this investigation identified and disrupted serious criminal activity in the Greater Toronto Area that posed a grave risk to our community safety. This includes a conspiracy to commit murder, shootings, extortion, robbery, drug trafficking, and firearms offenses. This investigation also has uncovered serious allegations of criminal corruption among police officers. This includes 7 police officers employed by the Toronto Police Service and 1 retired member of the Toronto Police Service. It is alleged that these officers have demonstrated varying degrees of criminality and associations to criminal networks. The allegations of criminal corruption include bribery, obstruction of justice, drug trafficking, theft of personal property, breach of trust, and the unauthorized access and distribution of confidential information. We are alleging that some police officers who were collecting personal and private information unlawfully and distributing it to members of organized crime, which ultimately resulted in serious harm in our communities. Our investigation began in June 2025 when a conspiracy unfolded to murder a member of Corrections Management who was working at an Ontario correctional institution. Over a 36-hour period, a number of suspects attended this member's home in York Region, we allege for the purpose of murdering him. As you will see next, surveillance footage captures the moment that 3 men, masked and armed with a loaded handgun, returned to the officer's home and rammed a police cruiser that was in the driveway.
And 2 cars in front of them just wandering down the middle of the road. Cars coming up behind.
Those are our vehicles. Let's take them down right now. Contain.
Over the grass into a car.
You calling there, Jude?
I have not seen anyone get out the passenger side and haven't seen anyone run around the houses. I have containment in the back. Keep doing what you guys do. I'm blocked out for some trees.
These brazen actions highlight the clear dangers that were faced by the victim, his family, and the police officers that were there to protect him. The 3 suspects who were arrested by police officers at the scene, as I mentioned, were in possession of a loaded handgun, and it is worth emphasizing that this was the 3rd time they had returned within 36 hours. As investigators pieced together the events leading up to this crime, it was determined that a Toronto police officer, Constable Timothy Barnhart, had unlawfully accessed confidential information about the victim. We allege that this officer then released the information to a Mr. Brian DaCosta, and from there it was released further into other criminal networks. We allege that Mr. DaCosta is a key figure in the criminal network operating within the Greater Toronto Area with, in fact, significant international ties. The investigation led police to identify 3 additional suspects who were planning to cause harm to the correctional management member. In fact, a Mr. Median Jackson, a Mr. Kajan Doman, and Mr. Devontae Barker Campbell ultimately had access to the confidential information that had been accessed by Constable Barnhart and were recruiting other criminal actors to carry out harm against him. These 3 individuals have been charged and arrested in connection with this investigation. Further, Mr. DaCosta and Mr. Elwin Satanowski, Mr. Daljit Singh, and Mr. Thomas Fippard, among other criminal associates, sought and obtained confidential information from various Toronto police officers, which we allege was to facilitate crime. In some cases, police officers were offered bribes for this information. We have identified a number of serious criminal acts that have occurred following the release of confidential information, almost in real time. This includes extortion, commercial robberies, and 7 shootings right here in York Region. We allege that those shootings were, in part, facilitated by the release of confidential information from Constable Barnhart to Mr. DaCosta and Mr. Satanowski. At the scene of one of these shootings, police arrested Mr. Doman, whom I mentioned earlier. He remains in custody since that time. A firearm recovered at the scene of this shooting was determined to have originated from the United States and would have been unlawfully imported into Canada at some point in the past. Through forensic identification, we allege, and police have now linked, this firearm and Mr. Doman to, in fact, 8 shootings across southern Ontario. In addition to shootings, in one case, information accessed by Constable Barnhart made its way to Mr. Fippard, who we allege used the information in part to conduct an extortion plot. This has previously been reported in relation to Mr. Fippard. Let me now get into more detail on how additional officers were tied to these crimes. We allege that Toronto Police Constable Elias Muad was identified in the release of confidential information to Mr. Singh and Mr. DaCosta. We allege that the information provided was in support of illicit activity. Additionally, and previously reported, retired Toronto Police Constable John Madley Sr. and now his son, Toronto Police Constable John Madley Jr., have unlawfully accessed and distributed confidential information. We allege that Mr. DaCosta was involved in a sophisticated drug trafficking operation, and we believe he was responsible for the exportation of cannabis and fentanyl, and with the network more broadly, and as we continue to investigate, the importation of cocaine and the local wholesale trafficking of cannabis, cocaine, and methamphetamine. When police officers arrested Mr. DaCosta on January the 23rd of this year, 2026, officers seized 169 pounds of cannabis and 1 pound of fentanyl, which we believe was destined outbound for a European location. The investigation also identified 4 additional Toronto police officers. Sorry, I should not say additional. 4 Toronto police officers, Constable Barnhart, Sergeant Robert Black, Constable Sarabjit Betty, and Sergeant Carl Grillette. In an operation orchestrated by Mr. DaCosta, we allege that these officers in particular were involved with Mr. DaCosta in supporting illegal cannabis dispensaries by accepting bribes to provide, ultimately, protection from law enforcement investigation. As you have seen so far, this case uncovered significant drug trafficking activity. Investigators have determined that some of the officers we identified also participated in drug trafficking. In particular, Constable Barnhart, Sergeant Black, and Constable Betty are all charged with various offenses relating to the trafficking of cocaine. As the investigation continued to unfold, other criminal conduct was identified. In an incident previously reported in the media, Toronto Police Constable Mr. Derek McCormick was arrested for his participation in the theft of personal property from a police facility. We continue to actively investigate this matter and have recovered a substantial amount of property. This includes driver's licenses, health cards, passports, and other personal property. Other criminal actors outside the police service were also identified and arrested for the commercial trafficking of cocaine, methamphetamine, illicit cannabis, fentanyl, heroin, and oxycodone. And yet another illegal firearm was removed from the streets from a repeat offender who was already out on bail for drug trafficking. All individuals arrested and charged in relation to Project South have been provided to media in a package today. This is among the most complex and challenging investigations of my 28-year policing career. Since June 18, 2025, more than 400 officers have played a part in this investigation. The investigators on this case include members of York Regional Police, the Toronto Police Service, the Ontario Provincial Police, and Correctional Services of Ontario. Supporting these investigators was a dedicated team of prosecutors from the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, and also this investigation was made successful by funding from the Ontario government, Ministry of the Solicitor General, through the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario. The investigating officers represent the very best in what we expect of our police officers, demonstrating integrity, professionalism, ethical investigations, and a commitment to uncovering the truth and holding offenders accountable, including fellow police officers. In fact, I would say that this investigation is the hallmark of investigative excellence. The investigators involved held a mirror to the face of the criminal justice system and to our policing institution to uncover the truth. The interoperability of police services, corrections, and prosecutorial services is to be commended. I am confident in saying we are extremely proud of the work done by our collective teams on this case, and as you've heard from the very beginning, our investigators, and certainly Chief McSween and Chief Demkew, have committed to leaving no stone unturned. And this commitment remains ongoing. This investigation continues, and we will pursue every lead to rid our communities of organized crime and corruption within our institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I'd now like to call to the podium Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew.
Thank you. Good morning. This is a painful and unsettling moment. It needs to be addressed openly, and it needs to be addressed honestly. The allegations against 7 Toronto police members and 1 retired member are deeply disappointing. I understand this news will be distressing for Torontonians and our police service members. No corner of society is immune from the reach of organized crime. But when organized crime penetrates the Toronto Police Service, the harm goes far beyond the immediate wrongdoing. As Chief McSween said, and I will repeat, corruption has no place in policing. It strikes at the trust people place in us. And as such, in our quest to tackle these types of allegations, we are committed to leaving no stone unturned. So let me start at the beginning. The moment I became aware of these allegations, my highest priority became doing everything in my ability to respond in a way that preserves the trust of Torontonians. 2 key principles have guided my actions and ultimately those of the Toronto Police Service. 1, the pursuit of justice without fear or favor from or towards anyone, letting the evidence lead where it leads. And 2, that the measure of our response will leave no doubt that we understand the harm this represents. Let me speak first to the pursuit of justice. From day one, our priority was to ensure the independence of this investigation, to ensure it was conducted with great care, diligence, and professionalism, and to seek justice, no matter how difficult that pursuit may be. The charges are proof of this commitment, and our hope is the integrity of this investigation is the first step in helping Torontonians feel confident in the trust they place in us. Let me take a moment to say how grateful I am for our policing partners at the York Regional Police Service for leading this investigation. Their expertise and independence have been vital. They conducted a deeply thorough and professional investigation. I thank Chief Jim McSween and Deputy Chief Ryan Hogan and their members for their exceptional work. I also want to recognize the many members of the Toronto Police Service who worked tirelessly supporting this investigation. In particular, our Professional Standards Unit, who worked hand in hand with the York Regional Police throughout this investigation. Their contribution was critical. My sincere thanks to everyone who supported this difficult but very necessary work. First, to those charged today, you will answer for your actions in a court of law. We will do everything we need to do to support the York Regional Police and the court process. And all necessary disciplinary processes will be followed. The 7 members who have been arrested have been suspended, and where appropriate, I will be seeking suspension without pay. And to our over 8,000 members, the allegations against these individuals do not represent the Toronto Police Service. They do not represent who you are. They do not represent what our organization is and stands for. These arrests are a necessary step in ensuring that those who face allegations that bring disrepute are held to account. We will not let the actions of a few define the reputation of the many. As this matter becomes public today, our priority remains the safety of our communities. I know our members will remain focused on the professional delivery of service that Torontonians rely on. Continue to take pride in who you are. Take pride in your oath of office, and take pride in the uniform you wear. And to Torontonians, as Chief McSween and I committed, we have left no stone unturned. Our unflinching efforts in this investigation to hold members to account who are alleged to have committed serious criminal offenses supports the trust you place in the service. Organized crime is corrosive. That it infected our service is unacceptable. But these allegations are not representative of over 8,000 members. I'm always grateful for the women and men who continue to serve with courage and integrity, and I will always support their hard work. Character can best be judged by how people respond in moments of great challenge. And the Toronto Police Service members will rise to meet the challenge of this day. And I can assure Torontonians that with this news, our incredible members will be provided all the tools and resources they need to succeed. The reality remains, we have a long road ahead of us. Our top responsibility is to undertake the hard work of honest examination, to look critically at how this occurred, to identify the weaknesses, and to address them in a way that upholds the trust placed in the Toronto Police. These events underscore the need for constant vigilance and modern oversight. To that end, the chair of the Toronto Police Service Board and I have requested the Inspector General of Policing to immediately launch an independent external inspection. We have written directly to the Inspector General of Policing, Ryan Teschner, and outlined 5 priority areas I believe should be part of his review. I trust the Inspector General to determine the appropriate scope and ultimately to entrust the work to an independent authority. I can assure Torontonians the Inspector General will have the full support of the command and the entire Toronto Police Service. And we look forward to the recommendations that ultimately emerge. We will publicly release the letter we have sent to Mr. Teschner today. In addition, in the coming days and weeks, we will get to work examining our internal processes and controls to allow for immediate actions where required. I began my remarks by acknowledging the harm created by these types of allegations. That is because the effectiveness of the Toronto Police Service ultimately rests on the trust that exists between our members and the public we serve. In closing, restoring trust requires more than words. It requires sustained effort, openness to scrutiny, and the humility to change. That is the work ahead, and it is the work our service is committed to performing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We will now open the floor to questions from the media. I ask that you approach the microphone to my left at the back with Constable Musklock, and please state your name, the media outlet you're with, and who your question is directed to. We also ask that you provide one question and one follow-up question only.
Good morning. My question is for Chief Demku. Chief, back in 2024, following the Omar Zamir acquittal, you had said that part of what you wanted to do is rebuild trust in police. Now we're here at this moment with obviously a lot of stuff happening inside your department. So my question to you is very straightforward. Why should the people of Toronto continue to have faith in the Toronto Police Service as all this stuff unfolds?
Yeah, listen, I appreciate the question, and you know, the issue around public trust in these kinds of circumstances is frankly the priority we obviously recognize. We recognize that these types of allegations shake the very foundation of trust that people place in the institution of policing, and in this case, the Toronto Police Service. I think it's important to, first of all, reflect on how we came to be here today. And we came to be here today because of the incredible collaboration and coordination of police efforts to tackle organized crime and to follow the evidence wherever it goes, and in this set of circumstances, to hold members accountable and follow the evidence and put them before the courts so that they can answer for their actions. And in this investigation, we very much focused on the integrity of the process. The investigation was led by the York Regional Police and very significantly supported by the Toronto Police, and specifically our Professional Standards Unit. And we worked tirelessly embedded in the investigative team to follow the evidence and go wherever it takes us and make sure we do everything we can to hold those who are alleged to have committed significant criminal offenses accountable. And I think people need to know just how in-depth that investigative effort was and the integrity of the process with York Regional Police leading it. Secondly, in response to these allegations, you know, we are now entering another phase, and it is a phase of continued investigations, which I've assured the York Regional Police Service they will have absolutely unfettered access to every resource the Toronto Police Service needs to bring to bear to support their investigative efforts. And secondly, the court process is to follow, and we will support that court process. Additionally, we have a discipline process, which I'm committed to working with York Regional Police to continue to follow every lead regarding all avenues of discipline that are available to me as a chief and to us as police leaders. And to that end, officers have been suspended, and where appropriate, I am seeking suspension without pay, where the law permits me to do that. And finally, you know, we are bolstering our Professional Standards Unit immediately, but very importantly, as I said, we've written to the Inspector General to provide independent oversight and an independent perspective and inspection of 5 key areas that we've identified that are relevant as a result of this investigation. And we are committed to ensuring we do everything we can to maintain the integrity of this investigation and to hold members accountable who are breaching the law or committing offenses of any form.
My follow-up is, obviously this involved officers sharing information about other members of law enforcement. Are you concerned at all about the way this could fracture your membership with other officers, their trust in other officers? And this happened under your command, obviously. Then what responsibility do you think you bear with all this unfolding under your watch?
So it's a little hard to hear your question, but listen, I'm the chief of police. I'm responsible for not only supporting this investigation, of course, and the discipline of the organization, but I'm responsible for leading over 8,000 members. And I think importantly recognize over 8,000 members, sworn and civilian professionals alike. They come to work each and every day. They work with honor, they work with dignity, they work with a commitment to service and integrity and courage, time and time again. And they have demonstrated their commitment to community safety and well-being each and every day. We talked about last year what's going on in the city of Toronto as it relates to crime and the incredible positive impact our members have had in identifying and dealing with issues regarding safety and security of our communities. And that work will continue, and I take full responsibility for leading that work, and conversely, take full responsibility for responding to what we learned from this investigation and taking steps to make sure we do everything we can to prevent any other instances of this nature where we can.
Hi, Shauna, CityNews. This question is for Chief McSween. Some of the videos we just saw are quite shocking. I know residential shootings, these targeted shootings, have been a serious issue in your region for the last year or so. So what is your reaction to the fact that now officers from Toronto are allegedly involved in gun violence, that is traumatizing residents in your region?
Well, thank you for the question. My reaction is not unlike Chief Demkew. The actions of officers that potentially and did in many cases have an impact on public safety in York Region. It's quite clear those actions are reprehensible, but our commitment is to make sure that we continue this investigation and, where there's any others that may be responsible for this type of activity, to root it out. Our collective commitment is to continue this investigation, and as the chief mentioned, leave no stone unturned. So, I'm disappointed, like Chief Demkew is, but I think we need to be very clear here. Not unlike the Toronto Police, York Regional Police has almost 3,000 members who go out each and every day and do a fantastic job in our community. The actions of a few should not be representative of the actions of many of our people who work really hard each and every day to uphold the trust our communities have in us, and we'll continue to do what we can to make sure they have the support and that the communities are well informed along the way. And we do everything we can to minimize risk in our communities.
Yeah, must be shocking for them to learn. The victims of these shootings. My follow-up is for Chief Demkew. Can you just go over, of the 7, they've all been suspended. Have any been suspended without pay already?
Thank you for that. At the present moment, we are seeking suspension without pay for 4 of them. But I will tell you that as the releases and the conditions of the releases are made available to our investigators this morning, we are examining the legal authorities I have in regards to suspension without pay, so there may be more info to follow. But presently, at least 4 of the 7, I will be seeking suspension without pay.
And okay, bail.
Thank you. David with CityNews. This is probably a question best directed to Chief McSween. The victim who's being described as, or rather the would-be victim of the home invasion, that unit commander at the Toronto South Detention Center, are we viewing that individual as completely innocent in all of this? Or is there any connection with some of the crime here, or is this individual, were we viewing them as completely innocent?
I think I'll take the question on behalf of Chief McSween. I just want to make sure I understand your question. I missed the beginning of it, trailing off. Was the question specifically about the victim of that incident, and what was the specific question again? Right.
The specific question is sometimes people can get caught up because they are involved in organized crime, and sometimes somebody can refuse to participate and finds himself a victim. Is there one direction we're leaning in here for this particular individual?
I would say that there is absolutely no evidence or information to suggest that the victim of that incident is in any way, shape, or form connected to organized crime whatsoever. Our belief is that that member was doing his job effectively, was ethical, and had complete integrity in his position, and that those actions, his commitment to integrity in his position, was what spawned the criminal actions against him.
Okay, and then to follow up, can you tell us what triggered the investigation in the first place? What was it that brought your attention to the fact that something was wrong?
Yes, so in regard to the first incident that spawned the investigation, it was the attack on the corrections management member that you have referenced. That was the genesis for the investigation. And it was in short order following that incident and the two incidents that followed over 36 hours that our investigators uncovered the actions of Constable Barnhart. Those actions were the unlawful access and subsequent distribution of personal information relating to that member. That was the genesis of the investigation and how it began.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Joe Warmington from Toronto Sun and Post Media. Question first for Chief McSween. The deputy just said it that this started with the discovery of Constable Barnhart as a Toronto police officer. And I want to know why you would call the chief of Toronto Police on that when it was your investigation. The minute you call the chief of Toronto Police, now he's in a position where he's got a conflict of interest. And the second part would be to Chief Demke. Why did you not refer this to be investigated outside of the police service? You had 30 police officers from Toronto Police, including professional standards, investigating your own service on something as serious as a police officer having his house shot up. I think it's a fair question. I know it's a complicated matter, but as you sit here and listen to it, it's police investigating police, and it's all in-house. And so how does the public know? And more importantly, perhaps the officers that are contacting all the media people that are very, very upset about this, they want to know that as well. So it's probably for both chiefs.
Well, let me start. It was imperative for the Chief of Toronto Police to know immediately what we had uncovered about one of his members. And also because we needed the cooperation and the support of the Toronto Police Service to do some of the work inside to help us with the investigation. I can appreciate your question, but I have full confidence in our professional standards bureaus who work hand in hand with one another to do this very difficult work, but necessary work. So that's why I called Chief Demke immediately. And as was said here today, and I will reiterate, we had been lock and step with each other on this investigation, standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure every investigative avenue and resource that was required was committed to this investigation, and will continue to do that beyond today. Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And Joe, thank you for that question. I think it's a very important one that we unpack for people watching and listening. The Community Safety and Policing Act does have a regulatory framework around conflict of interest, and we adhere to that. In fact, this investigation was led by the York Regional Police. I was not provided an opportunity to make investigative decisions, impact the speed and flow of the investigation. None of those considerations came to me in my role as the Chief of the Toronto Police. That was solely in the hands of the York Regional Police Service. What we did commit to do is maintain the integrity of the investigation and ensure that the York Regional Police had every resource they need, that we could follow every single lead and make sure that we address every concern that was investigatively uncovered. And I committed to the chief, and we very expressly talked about there can be no stone left unturned in this investigation. And I committed to provide resources in a way that maintained the integrity of the investigation, but an investigation led by the York Regional Police Service, not by the Toronto Police Service.
Okay, just a quick follow-up on that, very, very quick. One of the words, I'm going to ask it. The second question is, one of the police officers, we understand, was arrested while on duty or on paid duty. Can you comment on that, even the deputy?
I think in regard to confirming that incident happened, it has been reported that that did occur. I will say that, yes, a Toronto police officer was arrested yesterday in that capacity, but it was not related to the actions of the officer yesterday. It was related to the overarching case that we have spoke about.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News. What can you tell us about alleged links to the towing industry? We have our sources telling us that some of these officers were allegedly involved in some of the violence we've seen there.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the question. In regards to the tow industry, we have heard this from sources in the media as well, with some reporting last evening. I can tell you that in regard to the tow industry more broadly, you'll have seen a lot of work happen with the tow industry in recent years. In regard to this specific investigation of Project South, Mr. Elwin Satanowski does have an affiliation to the tow industry. In regard to one of the shootings that you would have seen on the screen, it did occur at a commercial complex with an affiliation to a tow industry, and in fact, a tow truck was seen in that video. More broadly, however, I cannot speak to motive behind shootings and whether the shootings themselves were a direct motive in the tow industry. In fact, some of the shootings that occurred, in fact, right here in York Region, I'm confident in saying that did not have any connection to the tow industry. And in fact, people that were residing in those homes had no connection to the tow industry in some cases.
And our sources were also suggesting that perhaps this is larger and involves police in other jurisdictions. Could you confirm that that is possible?
What I can tell you is this investigation is ongoing and will continue for some time. The people that we had sufficient grounds to lay charges on in this investigation have been reported on today and are in the packages that were provided today. As the investigation continues and we continue to examine relationships between the arrested police officers, the retired member, and other factions of organized crime that have been arrested, we may uncover further information. And as the chiefs have committed to, we are committed to leaving no stone unturned. And if and when we do have investigations into other police officers that result in criminal charges, we will be bringing that forward in subsequent releases of information.
Abby O'Brien from the Toronto Star. You mentioned that one of the individuals arrested is connected to a criminal network and has significant international ties. Can you elaborate on those international ties?
What I can speak about with regard to specifically, you're referring to Mr. Brian DaCosta. We are continuing to investigate Mr. DaCosta and his network. As I mentioned, there's a significant tie to drug trafficking. And with regard to drug trafficking, our allegation is that Mr. DaCosta was involved in the outbound exportation of illicit cannabis outside of Canada to a European location. The European location I will not speak of further as the investigation remains ongoing. And in addition, a pound of fentanyl, a significant volume of fentanyl that was outbound. Those connections, by their very nature of the destination, provide us with a framework at the outset for the international framework that is at play, and we continue to investigate that thoroughly with regard to Mr. DaCosta.
And this is for Chief Demkew. Going forward, what steps can Toronto Police take to assure the public that their officers are not able to sell personal information to the highest bidders or a hitman?
You know, I missed the back end of that question. Please, can you repeat that?
I said, what steps will the Toronto Police take to assure the public that their officers are not able to sell personal information to the highest bidders or a hitman?
Well, that's a very important conversation that needs to be had. I think what's important in this particular set of circumstances is to recognize that while technology is evolving and the speed of technology and our use of data is evolving, in this case, the audit trail available actually worked. And when there was a need to examine a particular use of the records, we were able to identify who the officer was and advance the investigation very rapidly. So the technology that we use does have the ability for us to scrutinize how members are using that data, and that is something we do as a matter of our investigative processes. Additionally, one of the things that we're asking the Inspector General actually to look at, independent of us, is exactly the issues around access and control of information and databases. So this is an opportunity now that the investigation is out in the light for us to take a look at our internal systems, but also to bring in some independent inspection and oversight to give us a better understanding of what can be done in that regard to ensure that we're best in class in controlling the information that we need to conduct our work.
Thank you.
Michelle Song, CBC News. How many investigations have been undermined by these accused officers?
Sorry, was your question how could or?
How many investigations have been undermined by these accused officers?
When you say undermined by these officers, just so I'm clear on your question, are you referring to cases that are already before the court that the officers were involved in?
Yeah, or any other ongoing investigations that might be obstructed by these officers.
Right. So I would say at this point, we don't have any charges related to that information about ongoing investigations that have been compromised by these officers. More broadly, however, and with regard to the second portion that we've just had in the question period here about looking at cases that they may have been involved with in the past, there is a retroactive inspection of cases that will occur for all of the involved officers to see what their roles were in those cases and to what impact their involvement in cases may have jeopardized cases in the past, present, or future court proceedings. At this point, we do not have any cases to report on that would fit into that scheme.
And my follow-up, some of the co-accused of alleged drug kingpin Ryan Wedding are held at the Toronto South Detention Centre. Can you confirm the conspiracy to commit murder is linked to the Wedding case?
No, I cannot confirm that.
Thank you.
Hi, Patrick White from the Globe and Mail. It sounds like with 7 officers arrested that there must have been some kind of systematic recruitment of officers in the GTA going on. Can you shed any light on how these officers were in some ways recruited by organized crime?
As we continue to investigate and look both, again, retroactively, we continue to examination the relationships of the officers and how they connected to organized crime figures. Part of that is the investigation that is ongoing. I do not have any definitive information to date that I can share with you about how these officers came to know, for example, Mr. DaCosta or Mr. Fippard. As the investigation unfolds, we may become more clear on how that relationship formed.
Great, thank you. And we know about the TPS officers. How can we be sure that this hasn't spread with so much interoperability between forces in the GTA that this hasn't spread to other forces, including York Regional Police?
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. As both Chief Demkew and Chief McSween mentioned earlier, organized crime is an insidious, action that takes place in many institutions, including policing. We are certainly alive to and aware that that can affect multiple institutions and other policing services. At this time, our investigation remains ongoing. We are committed to looking at all avenues in terms of the relationships of the arrested officers, the retired member, and other avenues of organized crime and their relationships. And if we encounter leads, we will follow them to the end of the road to uncover any other police officers in any other services where criminal actions have occurred. Thank you.
Karen Lieberman, Global News. You just referred to the insidious nature of organized crime, and we heard that word used many times, and how organized crime can infiltrate communities, in this case, police services. I guess what I'd like to know, and I think what Torontonians, people in York Region would like to know, is how does that happen within police? Police are highly trained individuals. You have sergeants on that list who are arrested, constables. How does that turn happen? What is the motivation? Is it money?
Well, I'll start the answer to that question. Listen, we're big organizations and hire from the human race. And we have incredible controls, incredible systems, incredible training. And importantly, in this case, to recognize that when something did go wrong, we found it and we were able to tackle it and we were able to put people before the courts where they belong. But this, any element of organized crime infiltration in policing is absolutely unacceptable and requires our complete commitment to root out and address. But I think it's also important to recognize that over 8,000 people serve with integrity and courage every day in Toronto, and many thousands more across the province of Ontario. So people need to understand that we are, as police leaders, here at this table and across the sector, committed to doing everything we need to do to address and root out the impact of organized crime in our communities, anywhere, including in policing.
Yeah, I'll just add to it. Chief Demke is quite right. I mean, the many police officers I mentioned, over 30,000 police officers show up every day doing the right thing, making the right decisions. Yet, but for a few here today that we're talking about who are not upholding their oath, and that now has an impact on the trust and confidence people may have in our institution, in the institution of policing. But I think my message to York Region residents is that the fact that you have two chiefs here today and a deputy chief who are being fully transparent about this investigation and the integrity and the dedication and commitment we have had throughout from day one to root this out and beyond today, including, and I will reinforce Chief Demke's message and call on the Inspector General for that review and inspection. I support that. Our residents deserve that, and just as important, our members deserve that. I suspect as that unfolds in the coming weeks, months, and we will learn from that, and that's what our commitment is, to learn and to make sure this never happens again. That's our goal.
And if I just add, before you go to your next question, you will get the Inspector General letter today. One of the areas we've identified is screening and vetting of candidates who are joining police services, but also throughout their career, recognizing, to the heart of your question, we need to do everything we can to address this.
Chief Demke, is this the largest case of corruption in the history of the Toronto Police Service?
There's a lot of subjectivity in assessing that kind of question. I'll say, in my time as chief, certainly the most concerning and most significant professional standards internal affairs matter. And in my over 35 years as a police officer in the city of Toronto, certainly of an incredible magnitude and incredible seriousness.
Hi, Chiefs. Beatrice Vaisman, CP24. My sources have told me that these officers involved are from 11 Division, 12 Division, and guns and gangs. These are 3 different units, including a specialized unit where this officer was part of a unit where they weed out the bad guys, those most violent in our society. Is there a reason officers from those particular divisions and units were kind of recruited to be a part of this? And how do you make sure the safeguards are in place that there's no more rotten apples in those divisions specifically?
You want to start?
Yes, thank you, Chief. Thank you for the question. I'll start with that. With regard to the officers, they were from a number of different divisions. As we came to investigate, in particular, Constable Barnhart, which was the genesis of the investigation, our information led us to believe that it was relationships that Constable Barnhart had with other officers. And to what extent those relationships go in the past, I do not have significant information on that. But instead of framing it as individual divisions, I would frame it more as relationships amongst individual police officers, connected specifically to Constable Barnhart at the genesis of this investigation.
And I think I'll just follow up. The charges we're discussing today are criminal in nature. There's obviously a lot more work going on. But the units that have been impacted that are here as part of the criminal allegations, it's 12 Division, 23, 11, and 52. And one inactive member who was previously assigned or was a member of the Emergency Management Unit.
Chief, I understand that there's been reports there was an emergency board meeting. Has anyone from the Toronto Police Services Board or the mayor called for your resignation? And why should the people of Toronto still have confidence in you as the chief of police?
Your first question, no. Secondly, right now my job is very much focused on dealing with the immediate aftermath of this investigation, and as you've heard, the investigation continues, and I will continue to lead the Toronto Police in supporting this very important work and continuing our commitment to work with the York Regional Police Service to leave no stone unturned. We are now at the point where we will do our work looking inwardly to ensure that everything we can do is done to address the issues that have been identified in this investigation. Thirdly, I have asked for and written to the Inspector General of Policing for an independent review of 5 key areas of concern, and we will cooperate with that Inspector General. And finally, I'd ask everybody in Toronto to recognize that our members do incredible work, and I will continue to lead the Toronto Police Service members who work day in and day out with great courage and integrity, serving the City of Toronto and beyond.
That will conclude today's press conference. Thank you very much for attending.